Hello, welcome to Yoga Rach. I'm Rach. Thank you very much for joining me for week 2 of our Aries sequence. So as you may have practiced last week's video, which was our new moon mantra and our mudra, so we were working with the Shiva Linga mudra and then the mantra of I am. Do let me know in the comments below how that's been going for you, if you've been practicing that over the last week. Do you feel a little bit more grounded? Do you feel a little bit more motivated, depending on what essence you felt you needed to balance in your Aries nature? So Aries is our fire element. We're going to be checking in with finding elements that make up our Sun Salutation by focusing on those vinyasas, or what we like to call connecting vinyasas. So in our Sun Salutation, that's connecting the movement between our plank and our lowering down, that chaturanga movement, finding our cobra pose and lifting back up through into our downward dog. So we're going to have a little check-in with our plank and our downward dog pose first, but remembering there is that essence of grounding in Aries. So we're going to start in child's pose. If that doesn't feel comfortable or restorative for you, please by all means listen to your body and move into puppy pose, anahata instead. So finding your way just briefly into tabletop. You might keep the knees hip width or take the knees a little bit wider, toes are touching. Draw the tailbone towards the heels. Let your forehead rest on the mat, even if it means that the tailbone has to lift and move away from the heels. Always better to make sure that your forehead is connecting down to the mat, letting the neck and the shoulders relax. See if you can stay an extended child's pose. So we're reaching the arms out in front. Spread the fingertips nice and wide so you're aware of that connection to your mat, not just in the forehead, but in the palms, the hands. It might be the back of the knuckles, the fingertips. So you're finding that essence of grounding down into your practice. Aries rules over the head, and we want to get that element of grounding down through the forehead so we can release and let go and connect as we start our practice. Aries is all about staying in the present moment. So can you stay present with your breath? Can you stay present with listening to your body? See how restorative or how challenging this pose may feel for you. Can you stay present with that connection of grounding through the hands, through your forehead, the legs, the feet in your child's pose? On your next inhale, starting to push into the palms, activating the hands, lifting up into tabletop. Bring the knees in if the knees were hip width. Bring the shoulders over the wrists, tuck under the toes, so you're lifting the knees, planting the toes, the balls of the feet, pushing the heels back, moving into plank. Staying completely present and active in your plank pose, so pushing gently through the hold of the hands just to take any weight out of the wrists. Keeping the shoulders over the wrists, and notice if you're leaning or pulling forward. Keep your head slightly lifted. Notice if you're dropping the hips or trying to push the hips back and up towards downward dog. Are the legs relaxed, or can you keep the legs active? Staying with your breath. Your choice, either move down into child's pose or pull the body back and up into downward facing dog. You draw the shoulders back, push the tailbone high, bend the knees if you need to. Create that little release into the hamstrings and into the lower back. Staying present with the breath. And again, checking in when you're ready. Either lower down into child's pose or draw the shoulders forward once more, letting the hips lower, push the heels back into plank. Always pause when you need to. So that might be child's pose. If you prefer, move into puppy pose. You might be pausing alongside me, maybe you're in downward dog, maybe you're in plank. So listening to your body. Try to only stay in a pose for up to 5 full breaths. So an inhale and exhale is 1 breath round. Try not to hold a pose for any longer than that in your practice. Moving between your downward dog, your plank, child's pose, or if you prefer puppy pose, one last time. Have that little pause. Checking in, listening to the body. Have a drink if you need to. You might come up to sitting, bringing the hands together, interlacing the fingers, slowly drawing circles with the hands. So if plank pose is a challenging pose for you, let me know why in the comments below. So does it make the wrists ache? Does it work your shoulders more? If you're feeling this in the core, awesome. That's where we want to be feeling this. It is about building up your core strength, but sometimes it just feels that dynamic to just hold the pose for as long as feels comfortable for you. So some of you maybe for half a breath, the whole breath. Some of you may be staying there for the 3, 4 or 5 breaths, but don't push or force. Listen to your body. When your body tells you it's ready to leave a pose, then honour that, listen to that, rather than saying, no, I must push you. Listen to what the body is saying and come out of the pose. So from here, we've checked in with our high plank and our downward dog. We're going to check in with the forearm variations and see if they are more challenging or actually more accessible in our body. So you've always got different variations to work with if you wish to, when we're checking in with these poses in this sort of gentle way of building up and starting our practice. So from tabletop, make sure you've got a bit of room in front of you, so we keep the hands on the mat. There's nothing worse than stepping the hands up and forearms off the mat, and then you've got that little dip between your mat and the floor. So we can walk the hands forward. If you can, try and get in the habit of lowering the forearms and the elbows at the same time, just gets the arms working together and evenly. So you're bringing the elbows roughly underneath the mat, but keeping the forearms parallel and keeping the hands pushing into the mat. So you're pushing through the palms, the back of the knuckles, the fingertips. So you're still working the hands the same way you were in plank, but now you've got a little bit extra help with the forearms and the elbows. From here, tucking under the toes, extend the legs back to lift the knees, and you're really going to hover off the mat. So check if you're trying to pull the tailbone back and up. So check where your shoulders are. So if you pull the shoulders forward, your hips start to lower a bit more. So notice if this one is more comfortable or more challenging. Again, let me know in the comments below which one you prefer to practice. And either move back and down into child's pose. You might lower the belly, the hips, and release the toes and move into a little bit of Sphinx pose. Or from your forearm plank, pull the shoulders back at the same time, walk the feet in towards the middle of the mat as you push the tailbone high into forearm downward dog or dolphin pose. So focusing on the breath, releasing the pose when you need to. You might move out of dolphin pose into forearm plank. You might be pausing in child's pose. Perfectly fine. So we're going to have a little go with some different variations in forearm plank and in our plank pose. So I'm going to just go through these. If you want to stay in your forearm plank, then go with these ones. If you want to skip forearm plank, please come down and have a little pause in child's pose or puppy pose, or watch them just so you can see how they work, and in time you might start to find these in your practice. So in our forearm plank, bringing the forearms and the elbows onto the mat still, keeping nice and active through the palms of the hands, the back of the knuckles, the fingertips, starting to find your knee tap. So tap, 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 tap. Still working with the breath. And whenever you need to, come down and pause. So you might be moving down into Sphinx, releasing completely back into child's pose. You might move back and up into downward dog, focusing on the breath. Couple more if you're still going, and either lower down, have it all, release back into Sphinx, and then we can move into child's pose or puppy pose. So from there we're going to check in with a variation in our high plank, our normal plank pose, top of a push-up. If you don't want to work with the plank pose, then again, like you may have just done for forearm plank, you might keep that little pause in child's pose or puppy pose perfectly fine. Listen to your body. So from here we can lift up into plank. So shoulders stay over the wrist, keep a slight lift of the chin, just check you're not dropping your hips, and we can bring the knee now into the belly and push the foot back. Knee into the belly, push the foot back. Knee into the belly, push the foot back. Or if you have a little bit more energy, you're welcome to have a go with running man plank. You might know these as mountain climbers, keeping your awareness with the breath, keeping the movement nice and slow, or as fast as you wish. Whenever you're ready, have a little pause either in downward dog, and then we can all meet in child's pose. So from here we're going to start to check in with the Vinyasa part of our Sun Salutation. So because we're low to the mat, we're going to start in downward dog. So we can start to find that placement in plank from downward dog. From plank we're going to work with our chaturanga. First couple of rounds work with your half plank, so bringing the knees onto the mat. Stay with that variation. If that gives you more support into your back, it makes it easier and more accessible for you to get your chest down towards the mat or onto the mat before your belly. And they're going to find low or high cobra, lift back up into plank and into downward dog. Stay with your breath, pause when you need to. You might watch the first round if you haven't practiced your Sun Salutations for a while, or if they're completely new to you. I will pop a link at the end for the Sun Salutations, or you might be joining me next week when we have a little bit of a full moon mashup with our Sun Salutations. But staying in that present moment, we're going to lift on up into downward facing dog. Checking in with the breath. Inhale, drawing forward with the shoulders. You might need to wiggle the feet back into plank. Lower the knees, make sure the knees are firmly on the mat behind the hips. As you exhale, push the elbows towards the hips, lower the chest down, the belly naturally follows. Untuck the toes, roll the shoulders. Inhale, low cobra. Lift the chin, lift the chest. Exhale, lower down. Tuck under the toes. Inhale, lifting through half plank. You might lift the knees for high plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, pull the body forward into plank. Lower the knees, find your half plank. Exhale, bend the elbows, push the elbows towards the hips, lower the chest down, belly naturally follows. Untuck the toes. Inhale, lift the chin, lift the chest, low cobra. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, into your plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Lower the knees. Exhale, lower all the way down. Inhale, you might start to lift a bit higher now with your cobra. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Two more if you wish with full plank or with a high cobra, or you might be having a pause, or you might stay with the first variation. Inhale into plank. Exhale, lower down, use high or low. Inhale, low or high cobra. Exhale, lower. Inhale, plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Pausing or last round, inhale, plank. Knees high or low, exhale, lower, inhale, low or high cobra, exhale, lower, inhale, down into plank, exhale, downward facing dog. A few breaths here, you might be inviting some movement into the body, slowly lower down, knees hip width or wider, moving into child's pose, or if you prefer, into puppy pose. So before we finish our practice for today, we're going to go through our transitions from our downward dog to our standing forward fold, from our standing forward fold into plank, back on up into downward dog. So you've got 4 different variations to work with. If you've done any of my previous sequences where we've done this transition, you might have worked with these before, or if you practice with me here in the studio, but sometimes it's nice to have a little check-in with the other variations, because sometimes we stay with the one we think we like, and sometimes we need something slightly different. So, coming up into downward facing dog. Slowly start to walk your hands to your feet. Once you're in your forward fold, slowly walk your hands forward towards the top of the mat into plank. Keep the shoulders over the wrist. Low the hips, so we're not pushing the tailbone high, push the heels back. Now draw the shoulders back, push the tailbone back and out. You might need to adjust the feet. This time, have a go with walking the feet to the top of your mat and folding forward. And don't worry if with either of these you ended up in the middle of the mat, perfectly fine. Listen to your body. From your forward fold, walking, not stepping, slow walk back into plank, shoulders over the wrists, pull the shoulders back, push the tailbone high, downward facing dog. So have a go if you wish to with these last 2. First one, and we can start to step, so it might be 1 big step or it might be 2 big steps. So we might step to the middle of the mat, or we might step all the way up to the top of the mat, step into the middle of the mat and step into the top of the mat, into your forward fold. And then you might have a go with stepping back into your plank. Pull the shoulders back, push the tailbone high. Last one is our hops, if you wish to have a go. So again, you might keep them really gentle, little effort. Don't push yourself or force yourself with this one. So you might again land in the middle of the mat, or as you bend the knees, pull the shoulders back and hop forward towards the top of the mat. Don't worry where you land. And you might have a go with hopping back. You might have a go with a hop forward but not a hop back. You might prefer to hop back but not hop forward. Again, perfectly fine. Gently push through the palms, bend the knees, hop back into your plank and pull the shoulders back, tailbone high. Have a few breaths in your downward dog. Well done. When you're ready, slowly lower down, knees hip width or wider, depending on whether you're going into child's pose or puppy pose. Keep the arms extended, resting the forehead onto the mat. Just keeping your awareness with the breath. Finishing our practice how we started in child's pose or puppy pose. You're welcome to stay in child's pose. You might be finding your way up to sitting. I will pop a couple of links at the end of this practice if you want to continue with finding that fire or core flow in your practice with some Sun Salutations. And thank you very much for joining me for week 2. I look forward to seeing you next week because it's full moon in Libra, but we're still bringing our essence of our Aries into the practice. So I shall see you then. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have enjoyed this practice, do leave me a little thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. I'll pop a little button here. Thank you so much again for joining me. I shall see you next week. Namaste.